San Antonio fans know this feeling. The silence after a finals loss. The replay you do not want to watch again. The one possession, the one collapse, the one matchup that keeps looping in your head. But for the Spurs, pain has never been the end of the story. It has usually been the part right before the next version of the dynasty appears. Gregg Popovich did not just build basketball teams. He built a way of seeing the game. 5 championships, 29 seasons, the NBA's all-time wins record, and a culture that kept renewing itself. Mike Budenholzer came through that system and later won a title in Milwaukee. Ime Udoka coached under Pop and carried that edge into his own head coaching career. Steve Kerr, a former Spurs guard, became one of the faces of modern championship basketball. That is the real Popovich tree. Not only plays, but standards. The old Spurs dynasty was not born from comfort. David Robinson's injury season opened the door to Tim Duncan. Tony Parker arrived at pick 28. Manu Ginobili arrived at pick 57. The franchise did not chase noise. It compounded trust. And after the heartbreak of 2013, when a title slipped away against Miami, the Spurs came back in 2014 and played some of the cleanest team basketball the league has ever seen. That is the emotional lesson for Spurs fans now. The greatest teams do not avoid the hard loss. They absorb it, then become sharper. The new Spurs build started with the obvious miracle. Victor Wembanyama at number 1 in 2023. But a rebuild is not one name. Stephon Castle added defensive force. Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant added another young layer. Then, San Antonio made the veteran acceleration move, landing De'Aaron Fox in a 3-team trade with Sacramento and Chicago. That deal was not cheap. It cost players and picks. But it told the league something important. The Spurs were no longer just collecting prospects. They were ready to put pressure on the Wembanyama timeline. That is why last season matters so much. San Antonio did not just make a cute run. Reports framed the Spurs as a 62-win team, a Western power, and a finals opponent. But the loss also showed the problem. Depth behind Wemby mattered. Physicality mattered. Decision-making under finals pressure mattered. De'Aaron Fox took heat after the series, and the front office had to answer the obvious question. Is this still the backcourt, or does the rise of Dylan Harper change the future? Brian Wright publicly backed Fox and Mitch Johnson. That matters, because championship teams need conviction before they need comfort. Then came the 2026 draft. The Spurs did not draft like a team chasing flash. They drafted like a team that remembered the finals. Jayden Quaintance at pick 20 is a long-term defensive bet with injury risk. But the upside is obvious. More athletic size near Wembanyama. Then San Antonio traded into pick 26 for Tarris Reed Jr., another front-court body. Pounding the Rock called the draft consequential because the finals revealed roster holes. The New York Post framed the Spurs as addressing a critical need for big man depth. That is the key. This was not random. This was the team admitting what championship basketball demanded. The emotional part is that Pop is no longer on the sideline. That matters. For almost 3 decades, the Spurs' voice was Pop's voice. But Mitch Johnson is not an outsider walking into a museum. He came through the organization, coached in Austin, served on the Spurs staff, and took the job after the hardest transition the franchise has faced in years. Pop moved upstairs as president of basketball operations. The headset changed. So why should Spurs fans believe this could be the year? Because the ingredients finally match the history. There is a generational big. There is a guard who has been through pressure. There are young players pushing for bigger roles. There is a front office willing to pay for the timeline. And now there is pain. Real pain. The kind of loss that either breaks a group or gives it a shared language. The Spurs dynasty was never built on shortcuts. It was built on patience, scars, development, and ruthless clarity. If Wembanyama turns the finals loss into fuel, if Fox answers the criticism, if Harper and Castle force the team to evolve, and if the new bigs give San Antonio the physical edge it lacked, then this is not just another rebuild. This is the next Spurs title window announcing itself. That is the signal. Spurs fans, is this the year San Antonio finishes the job? Drop your verdict in the comments and follow Full Court Signal for the next NBA rebuild file.